Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. I have one of the special people on the show today. I mean, you know we are all activists out here. And you know a whole lot of what I talk about. You know a whole lot of what I talk about is engagement in getting things done. It's not enough to just talk. It's not enough to be just on the streets. You have to be there getting things done. So what is the program going to be about today? We have a special one for you today. Here it is, the title of the show, Daniel Lee, From Progressive Activist to Politician. And the second half of the show is going to be Democratic Socialism Revisited. Daniel Lee made the necessary leap many progressives must if we are going to become the society we're fighting for. It is more than just activisms in the streets. Change is not linear, nor is it singular. Activism must overcome the Von-Neumann bottleneck. That is a computer term. Today we discuss the among other important issues. Why? With my friend, my former Move to Amend colleague and newly elected Culver City, California, Councilman Daniel Lee. So, who is Daniel Lee? In 2018, Daniel Lee became the first African-American council member in Culver City, California. Daniel has a master's degree in social welfare from UCLA and is a doctoral candidate at USC. He credits his grandmother, who participated with Dr. Martin Luther King in the Montgomery bus boycott, for his desire to be of service and his own social justice perspective. He has served on the Culver City Martin Luther King Celebration Committee for 7 years, planning its citywide celebration of the iconic civil rights leader. Much of Mr. Lee's local effort has been with youth. A filmmaker and actor, he has volunteered with El Rincon Elementary School students in an artist and communication program for 15 years. So he's not new to activism. He's not new to social justice. He's not new to helping folks out. He also developed a civil rights curriculum that he implemented at the Teen Center to increase young people's understanding of their country's history. Daniel Lee has been a key grassroots organizer in Los Angeles' Move to Amend Los Angeles, helping direct a campaign calling for a constitutional amendment to get a resolution through the LA City Council in December 2011. He was asked to join Move to Amend's national board and has served since 2012. He also serves on the board of directors for the Backbone Campaign and the Clean Power Alliance. So, I mean, we have somebody to talk to here. Following this segment, we will revisit democratic socialism after a weekend Facebook post introduced an honest and civil debate. I had a simple post and the debate went wild, but I think it's important. I think with the debate throughout the country, it is apropos. So without further ado, we have El Señor Daniel Lee. Daniel, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. Daniel and I go back a long time. We've traveled with Move to Amend just about 10, 15 states around the country. So, I mean, you remember those days, man?
Yeah, the convergences, the democracy conventions, yeah.
Yeah, we had good times then. But anyhow, let me tell you, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Daniel, is, as you know, over the last since the election of El Señor Trump, progressive activism has really really gotten out there. People are in the streets. People are doing a whole lot of things. And one of the things that I've spoke about, and we've spoken about a lot at Move to Amend, is the validity of electoral politics. You were an activist with. Well, I'll let you tell your story. First of all, tell us a little bit about, before we get into the political or to the electoral politics side, why don't you tell us a little bit about the activism that you did out there in LA?
Well, I mean, a lot of me really being active beyond just voting or showing up to protest really sort of came to a head with Occupy. And I was very involved with Occupy LA, a little bit with New York and DC. And Chicago. And there were a number of issues that I'd engaged with on a minor level for a while through, MoveOn.org groups or like the Sierra Club or some of the local community organizations that do pretty fantastic work here in LA. But, the more and more I did that type of work, the more I noticed that we were ultimately asking someone to do what we wanted to do because, for various legal reasons, we weren't able to just do it ourselves as people. But if we got together and organized as individuals and organizations, we could sort of compel people to do what we want, which is why, like, in conjunction with Occupy, when we got a resolution calling for a constitutional amendment to address Citizens United and other related cases, we were the first large city to do it in America and Los Angeles in December 2011. It was a good victory, and it was a testament to what organizing can do. But it was a resolution, and it was more about like awareness and raising people's consciousness about what Citizens United was, the undue influence of corporate money in our politics, and that type of thing. But since then, like, I've been involved with groups like Community Coalition in South Los Angeles, and they worked on Prop 47, which allowed a number of nonviolent felonies to be downgraded to misdemeanors, and for formerly incarcerated people to get that type of thing expunged from their record after a certain period of time. And that was a different type of testament to me for the way in which organizing can lead to policy change that really affects people's lives.
In what regards for that particular one?
Well, for that one immediately, one of the things that we focus on when we think about formerly incarcerated people is what they did. How bad they were. We don't think about the situations that led them to that. We don't think about like the social determinants that, basically made a lot of people think, okay, well, I live in this neighborhood. In order to survive, you have to either be, wolf or sheep. A lot of people don't have a choice. Or they feel they don't have a choice for whatever reason. But then once they come out of prison, after they've, been convicted and served their time, for whatever crime, but they've served their time, being a formerly incarcerated individual doesn't allow you to apply for certain social services. Until recently, at the Ban the Box campaigns, basically open it up. So now you don't have to list your history of interaction with the criminal justice system on your resume or on applications if you apply for a job. But prior to that, basically, once you got out of prison, certain social services were cut off to you. You basically couldn't get a job because you had to tell people, hey, yes, I was in prison. And there's this whole world of ability that we think, well, why don't you just get a job? Or why don't you just do this? Or why don't you just do that? That is completely impossible for formerly incarcerated individuals. So passing Prop 47 made it so a lot of people who would normally be asked in a lot of situations, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Don't have to answer yes to that question. So it's much more likely that they can get a job. And a lot of these jobs, I mean, they're not like, top secret level security clearance jobs that, require people to be, completely above board. they're just jobs that allow people to survive. And, that's the first step. Like, if we want people to not go back to prison and um, to not commit another crime, then we need to really provide them a way to provide for themselves. And I think with Prop 47 and downgrading felonies to misdemeanors, we made it more likely for a lot of people to be able to find a job and thus not be sent back to prison.
So that is Prop 47 was a direct result of the activism you guys had in the streets and elsewhere to get it and then to place it on the ballot. So your work actually turned into something that made a difference in society.
That made an immediate difference, yeah.
That made an immediate difference.
I think long term, the work with Move to Amend is going to make a difference, and it already has in terms of changing the conversation.
Tell us a little bit about
we
that.
have
about Move to Amend. Tell us a
work
little
with
about
Move to Amend.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, from our time together on the board of directors, the ultimate aim is to get a constitutional amendment which addresses not only Citizens United, but Buckley versus Vallejo, which was the case that actually said that money is speech, and Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad, which was the case that sort of enshrined the notion of corporate personhood. And, with those two cases stacked on top of each other as precedent, they formed the basis for Citizens United. Since corporations are people and we can't put a limit on the amount of money that people can spend in elections because money is speech, we can't limit the amount that corporations can spend on elections. And, for the past 7 years, I've been on the board of directors. Like I said, I got my start here with Move to Amend Los Angeles and our campaign to get the Los Angeles City Council to pass a resolution calling for a constitutional amendment. But with you and, quite a few other board members over the years, we've also had a number of different regional convergences where we work with both volunteers in general, but Move to Amend affiliates who are devoted to the cause and want to move their state and federal representatives to call for a constitutional amendment, to give them organizing training to learn how to, apply the appropriate amount of pressure to get their elected representatives to call for a constitutional amendment. In addition, for the last few years, and we actually have another one coming up in June, we've done a Move to Amend leadership summit where we spend the first few days giving people the type of organizing training that we did in our convergences a number of years ago to upgrade, their ability to construct campaigns and apply pressure on their elected representatives. But then, on the last day, we walked the halls of Congress, both the House and the Senate, as both a show of force to show them that we have people across the country working on this, but also to get more people to sign on to the We the People Amendment, which is HJR 48. We think we're going to be able to retain that number this time, and we have a new lead sponsor, Rashida. We have a new lead sponsor from
Michigan, right?
Actually, no. It's Pramila Jayapal from Washington State. But we're hoping we can get a lot of the newly elected Congress people like Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ayanna Pressley, and a number of others who've spoken about these issues in the context of their campaign to sign on to the amendment. But at the leadership summit, that's when we put their constituents in their face and we say, hey, you haven't signed on, your constituents want to get this done, let's get it done. From a realistic perspective, and I think this could probably transition you into another question, we know that this Congress is not going to do it. And the next Congress is not going to do it. So, part of the equation is to pressure the people who are there now, but another part is to prepare, the future generation to take their place.
You read my mind perfectly, because this is where we segue into what I call I shouldn't call it a new career, the new addition to Daniel Lee's career. Daniel, you decided, you've been an activist for a very, very long time. As you mentioned, there with Move to Amend, with Occupy LA, Occupy DC, Occupy New York, as well as some other things that you passed, resolution, the 47th Amendment, whatever it's called in California. But you decided, while at Move to Amend, while you're doing all these things, you're actually challenging politicians. Now you became a politician. Tell us about this transition and why that is such an important thing that you did.
Well, I mean, for me, for a very long time, I usually like to make the joke that is actually not really a joke for me. But, I think it's very powerful to speak truth to power. Mm-hmm. I think it's very powerful and very effective, especially when people aren't speaking your truth. When, people are talking about, maybe they're talking about women's rights, maybe they're talking about Black Lives Matter, but you're a trans Black woman and no one's talking about your particular situation. So speaking truth to power in that context is very powerful, and it lets those in power know, I am here and you need to take care of me too. Like, I am here and I demand that you do something for people like me. But at a certain point, I think as an activist, we all burn out. I think for the most part, a lot of us go through cycles of burnout that aren't necessarily productive. But for some of us, the burnout is not just focused on the amount of work that we do. It's focused on being tired of speaking truth to power to people who won't listen. And I think the necessary transition there is, well, why am I speaking truth to power? Why don't I have this power? Why don't I become that person? Why don't I organize to get someone else elected in that position? And I got to admit, for me, I've been thinking about it for a very long time, running for some type of office. But I wasn't really sure which office would be appropriate for me. And I finally settled on Culver City Council for two reasons. One, I found out that there had never been an African-American city council person in this city. And the city was about to turn 100 before the first time I ran and lost in 2016. But two, whatever other aspirations I might have in the future, I believe that it's really important to be truly connected to your community. And I felt that, and maybe this isn't true for everyone, but I felt like if I couldn't really connect to my community here in Culver City and win on a local level, then I probably shouldn't consider other things.
I want to stop you right there. I keep your thought, but I think that is such a profound statement. And I think, there are a lot of folks that they're always ready, let's say, to go ahead and get to that other level. I like the process that you just mentioned there. You want to be right next to the people. You want to support the people. Now, is this an at-large position, a district position? How do they do it in Culver City?
In Culver City, since we're a fairly small city, well, a small city with billions of dollars flowing through
in
it.
Business, yes.
Yeah, it's at large. So,
Okay.
so like it's at large, but the city is so close knit. You really have to connect to like a very broad constituency.
And I want to ask another question. What is the demographics of Culver City?
Demographically, I'm not sure I have all of the numbers, but in the context of me, like we're about 8% African American, predominantly white. I'm not sure of the percentage. The next major demographic, it's California, so it's Latina. And then the percentage of Asian Americans is similar to African Americans. I think it might be slightly more. Mm-hmm. But we have a very active Muslim community I have a very beautiful mosque that's sort of right across from me. We have a very active Jewish community. We have a very active Brazilian community.
Hmm.
So it's a very, I mean, we're in the middle of Los Angeles County and surrounded by Los Angeles City on all sides.
But
So
still a majority white city, no
yes,
matter. Well, the reason I want to bring that up, and I wanted to bring that up is because you did something that I think every politician, irrespective of race, should do, and that is, and you mentioned you did it in two ways. One is you said as a growing politician now you wanted to be close to the community, and you wanted that community to elect you based on the values you were going to bring to that community, based on what you were going to do for that community, and not anything else. And it's evident to me that in your community that has worked.
yeah. I mean, for me, like there was a very direct connection to activism as well. Like the first time I ran, one of the prevailing issues was an oil field we have on the edge of our city. And
Hmm.
I've been working for a number of years with the Sierra Club and other groups locally to find a way to limit the practices in the oil field and or close it down. And when I initially ran in 2016, when I lost, I talked a lot about closing down the oil field and converting it to a place where we had renewable energy, wind and solar. When I ran again in 2018, everyone was talking about that. Every candidate. By the end, or at least by the end of the campaign, we all had basically the same opinion. But there is a growing sentiment in the populace that came from the activists who have been working on this for years and years and years, many longer than me. And that really sort of fed into the reasons why I won. Because a lot of people knew that I was very dedicated to doing as much as I can to close down this oil field in our city. And, you know, they saw the threats to them immediately when it comes to cancer and other types of diseases, but then they also have a broadened recognition of climate change and the existential threat that that is. And I think that played a very large part in me ultimately winning because I worked with so many of these people for, you know, 7 to 10 years on that particular issue. And of course, you know, once the election was over in April, in June of last year, we basically voted as a council to close down, to come up with a plan to close down the oil field, the portion that's within our city's
Right.
boundaries. But you know, we did that 2 months after I was elected.
So success again. Now, I know there are several reasons you got elected. Actually, I saw you in Madison, Wisconsin, and at several other convergences how you work with people, and I can tell our audience here that Daniel Lee is a very, very effective engager of people, and whenever he's given his talks or he's teaching on social justice, racial justice, he's actually very, very captivating. I still remember Madison, Wisconsin. But so absolutely, there's no doubt for me that it's somebody who does their homework, somebody who's really committed to what they're doing. And listen out here, our great activists throughout Houston, throughout the country that's listening. Activism pays, and what we want is we want a whole lot of Daniel Lees out there, folks that are going to be activists out there in the streets, but realize that to get something done, you have to get something done. And for that to happen, electoral politics is one of the avenues that Daniel did. Now, Daniel, what's up next?
Oh well, for me right now, we're in the middle of a general plan process. I mean, two things. We're in the middle of a general plan process for the city, and we're actually at the nexus of what a lot of cities across the country are struggling with. We have some very, very large players moving into the city, and they're going to change things. One is Apple Studios. The other is Amazon Studios. And the entirely not well kept secret is HBO is moving their West Coast headquarters from Santa Monica to Culver City. And our city has gone through a pretty robust round of gentrification already.
Wow.
So those top tier companies coming in, the big challenges that we're going to face are basically around, well, it's LA, so traffic. But then
housing, right?
housing, yeah, like the price of rental housing and the cost of thinking about buying a house in Culver City is pretty astronomical. Occasionally, a property will go on sale that is in the range of $600,000 or $700,000, but it's usually sold within a day or within hours.
Right.
Usually, and I know a lot of communities across the country are feeling this. For a long time, it was LA County, the Bay Area, Seattle. But now it's becoming more and more widespread where our cities are basically constructed for rich people. And that is something that we need to change. It's something that we are going to have to address as a council. Either we're going to have to work in conjunction with some of these large players coming in, or we're going to have to be more directive in terms of what we demand. And the amount of impact that it's going to have for people who've lived here. And if you know Los Angeles County, people are renters.
Right.
Depending on the studies, people say our city, Culver City, is 45 to 55% renter.
Wow.
And as such, there's this weird perception of renters as more transient, and statistically, that's true. But more is a moving target. Many of the renters that I know here, and I've lived in the same place for the last 15 years as a renter. On the campaign trail, I met renters who have lived here for 20 to 30 years. And with all of this new money that's overall good for the city, it's really going to change the complexion of the city if we are not proactive, if we are not really looking for ways to keep the people who are here. And that's really one of the big focuses of what I'm working on at the council at the moment. We're in the middle of a number of different studies that are looking at inclusionary zoning, places that we can build affordable housing, places that we can build homeless housing, permanent supportive housing, and temporary shelters. But one of the things that is a large priority for me is there a way for us to craft policies that allow the renters who live here now to stay in their homes? In addition to that, I'm going to be starting, I'm a doctoral candidate at USC in their School of Social Welfare. And their program is actually very focused on one of the reasons I applied. Their program is very focused on some of the macro challenges that address economic inequality, homelessness, comprehensive mental health. I think there are opportunities for me to actually use some of the scholarship there to inform my work at the city. And it's one of the reasons I actually applied to the program. So I'm looking forward to find ways to use the work at USC to influence my work in Culver City. One of the other things that I'm doing, and I think my colleagues on the council will agree, but I got my MSW from UCLA, and I spoke with our police chief and our fire chief, and a former professor I had at UCLA. And we're going to start a pilot program to put social workers into the fire department and the police department to try to prevent some of the tragedies that we've seen around the country with people, primarily people of color, going through a mental health crisis and having law enforcement called on them and then being killed. We already have a psychiatrist who works with our police department and our fire department, but he's only here 3 days a week. So my idea and my hope is that if we have more comprehensive coverage, we can be preventative. I know people do things in a very reactionary way, but if we can prevent the bad things from happening at all, I think that's so much better. And both our police and fire chief have told me that 40 to 50% of their calls are mental health related. So I'm hoping we can go through this pilot year with UCLA and things go well. And then we can beef up the program and talk about maybe adding some money in the budget to make sure that we have first 7-day-a-week coverage and then 24/7 coverage.
Now, this is what happens, folks, listeners out there. This is what happens when you get an activist who've been close to the people, who understand what's happening with the people out there on the streets, otherwise in homes, who've entertained, speaking to the neighborhood. This is the kind of politician you get, somebody that's looking for real solutions. Unfortunately, a lot of that isn't there, and that's why when we go to the polls, we need to know who we're voting for, and we need to make sure we vote for. A lot of times I just say, vote for that person that you see working in community. Before we go, Daniel, because we're almost out of time. Actually, we're out of time, but this is very interesting to me. Here's the deal. Tell me your thoughts on our progressive movement right now, and then we'll wrap this up. But I'd like your thoughts. You know, we go back a long time, and I know a whole lot of your past thinking. So I'm wondering what you think about where we are today.
I think we're at a good moment right now. I think we need to still shy away from the tendency that I've seen crop up a lot. I think there's still a tendency to do the Messiah worship and to basically coalesce around one person rather than a movement. I think there are a lot of people right now who are really into it for the movement. There are a lot of people who are motivated by the crisis of climate change. There are a lot of people who are motivated by the push for Medicare for all. But then there are other people who are just about Bernie. There are other people who are just about AOC. There are other people who are just about Nancy Pelosi. And I think we need to get away from that type of like identity-based political identification. Because I think if we're strong in the long term, it's not just 1, 2, 3, or even the top 15 folks. It's all of us. And it's for people who are already leaders. And, one of the things that I didn't get to mention in the course of our conversation is, one of the things I ask a lot of the most vibrant and I think effective progressive leaders that I know are activists. They're not politicians.
Right.
And one of the things that I ask of many of them, because I don't think all of them should do it, but I ask many of them, when are you going to run for office? Because we need you.
I'm going to end it right there. I am going to end it right there because I love that. When are you going to run for office? My dear good friend, former colleague at Move to Amend, political activist, Culver City, California, City Councilman, Daniel Lee. It was my pleasure to have you here, my brother. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You have a great day, buddy. Folks, that was Daniel Lee. We go back a whole long time with Move to Amend, and I've been wanting to have him on for quite a while. Wanted to have him on when he was running for the council, but as you can see, he was a busy man trying to keep everybody entertained. Trying to keep everybody focused on the election out there. And you know what? He did it. He went from Occupy LA, Occupy New York, Occupy DC, Move to Amend, all of these activist organizations that we all participated in. Here we did Occupy, Houston Occupy, Kingwood. I did a few in Occupy Rhode Island, the one in Rhode Island, Occupy Providence, and a couple others. But he decided to make that necessary transition where the change we're all fighting for can be effected. And he did that successfully. We are going to be changing subjects, and we're going to go on to something that I wrote. The blog of the week. But before I go to the blog of the week, I need to do my little pitch here. So, folks, please do remember that this is a progressive show, a call-in show as well. Our telephone number, of course, is 64. What's our telephone? Can you believe I can never remember that number. I have too many of them because KPFT is a different one. 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Please also remember this is a progressive show that needs your support. By the way, guess what has been released? Chapter 2 of How to Make America Utopia. I finally got it out. Yes, folks, I know it's late, but How to Make America Utopia is there. And guess who gets it? Please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. And subscribe for as little as $1.99. And you know what? Guess what? You get a chance to read Chapter 1, Chapter 2. But guess what else is added to the mix, folks? I went ahead and put on my book, the other book that I have called As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. You can get that book, or rather, you can go ahead online and read that book with a membership to Politics Done Right. Patreon.com/Politics Done Right. That is patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Please keep us vibrant. We need thousands of subscriptions to make this viable. We have to start making some trips to DC. We have to start making some trips to New York. And folks, and guess what? We're trying to get a progressive producer. We need a few other things as well. I can't handle any of that until we get our membership way up. So right now I am killing myself. You see, the eyes are still red from daily 4 hours of sleep. And I'm talking about 7 days a week, working at least 16 hours a day, folks. This is some work so that we can get our message out. So please remember, go to patreon.com, patreon.com. Chapter 2 is out. You can get it. So anyhow, what are we going to speak about today? What are we going to talk about today? Well, you know what we're going to talk about today? Democratic socialism again. And why am I bringing that up? Because of a discussion that we had on Facebook. So I want to talk to you guys about that. So here we go. The first thing I got to say is, do you know what time it is? Do you really know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay. This blog post is interesting, right? This blog post came about. It is just a story. It's a feel-good story. It goes like this. I was sitting in my second office, Starbucks, putting my book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, at my website so folks can eventually subscribe to read it online. A well-intentioned gimmick to help support Politics Done Right. And yes, I intend to continue supporting my local Starbucks and other coffee shops, irrespective of Howard Schultz, given the good people, young and old, working there. We activists are working to recover what the billionaires and wealthy legally extorted from us. I got to fix that typo. Anyhow, I posted the following on my Facebook page, and that generated some great civil discussion. You know, on my page, we don't flame on, I see a whole lot of pages where people flame. I try to keep the tone. I try to set the tone. And the tone that we set is the only way we can talk and come to resolutions or whatever is if we can talk to each other in a civil manner. Shouting and all that kind of stuff doesn't work with me. If I find somebody shouting on my page, on my wall or whatever, that's the easiest way for me to. I don't ban anybody. I mean, I've probably banned one or two people in my whole lifetime. I believe in free speech. All I ask for is, sensible behavior. If somebody comes and maligns somebody on my page or my wall, that message will be summarily deleted. That's all, And the reason why is, like I said, you get nowhere unless you converse correctly. So anyhow, I posted the following message, and it said the following. A 22-year-old Kingwood kid just made my day, and he likely does not even know the boost he gave me, and he really did. I was sitting at the table blogging at Starbucks when a regular comes up to ask me the daily question. He asked me what I'm blogging about. I told him I'm posting a blog from a guy I recently interviewed about capitalism versus socialism. The patron said, "Count me out of that democratic socialism thing. I like capitalism." This guy is on Social Security and Medicare. I asked him if he liked Social Security, Medicare, and roads. "Of course," he replied. I asked him if he would like them to be better. He said he did. I told him that he likely is just like me. He said no and walked off. Okay. I could see the young man across from me listening attentively. I asked him what he thought. At first, he did not want to get into it. I figured why one should not assume. This is why you shouldn't assume. A Kingwood kid, he's going to start the standard prose. Well, he did not. He did, but not one I would have expected. He said, rightfully, there are flaws in all systems, but he acknowledged how bad our economic system has become for the average person. He served the country for 3.5 years right out of Kingwood High School. His health care ended the day he stepped out of the military. He gets help for 3 years of college, then he's on his own. He is forced to buy books he will not use to satisfy the book corporations who own the politicians. $350 for a book I will never use, he said. He then started talking about inclusivity, and many of the old people just are not getting why. Why was this exciting? He told me all of this without me coaxing any of it out of him. That is exciting to me, especially in a place like Kingwood, Texas. I didn't have to ask or he didn't have to think he had to change his thought process because he's talking to me or whatever. The young people are getting it, folk. The young people are getting it. They are seeing how much we have screwed them. We better get it right for them while we have time to atone for the individualistic, selfish people many of us became when Ronald Reagan made it vogue. Ronald Reagan made it vogue to be individualistic. He made it vogue to say, you know what, guys, just think about yourself. You know what, guy, it is your money. Why give the government your money? Why? It is your money. You guys, for those of you who are regular listeners to this show, you know what I think about when people start talking about all the money that they work, or the stock. When the stockbroker talk about his money, or the plutocrat talk about his money, Bezos, Gates, or whomever talk about whose money it is. You know what I think about that. It's not their money. You know, I mean, you remember the days when folks would say, well, you remember Obama had to kind of backtrack when he said you didn't earn that or something like that. Obama said, and they had poor Obama at that point in time going back. Oh, you didn't do that, and all these business owners and plutocrats and everybody else, they were screaming. Oh, Obama said you didn't do that. Well, you know what? Obama should have never backtracked. I would have stood up and said, no, you didn't. All these people built the roads for you. All those folks that work for you, and that excess money that you have is money that you could have paid them more and you didn't. They are the ones, all the money you have that you didn't physically work for, that you didn't mentally work for. You should be telling all those folks that work for you, thank you so kindly. The billions that Jeff Bezos make, thank you so kindly, people. Thank you so kindly for working for me, and for some of you actually going to the welfare offices to get food stamps and otherwise. Thank you so kindly, because every food stamp that you got is money I didn't have to pay you. It's my money. Don't be... there's a chapter in my thing called Indoctrination. I didn't quite say this part in Indoctrination about the business because I wanted to put it into another chapter. But we have to stop it. We have to stop believing that somehow because somebody in this system has a lot of money, that somehow, numero uno, that they earned it, and number two, they deserve to keep it. And this is not... I had a friend that I spoke to earlier, I think it was yesterday or today, who still doesn't have that concept about who really owns money here or whether these people are really deserving. One of my goals going forward is not to demean the millionaire or the billionaire. It's to put it into perspective. These guys earned their monies legally, and they followed the rules of our economic system. That our economic system is fraudulent, that our economic system is wrong, that our economic system is immoral, that our economic system creates disparity by design. It's not their fault. So I do not hate the millionaire or the billionaire. What I do want to do is take back from the billionaire what a fraudulent, inefficient, immoral economic system has allowed them to amass, because they amassed it on your back. And I'm not doing it or saying we should do it in some punitive manner. I'm saying we do it the way we did it before. We tax them. And we use those taxes to create infrastructure, which create jobs, which generate economic activity to correct for the deficiency of this immoral system. It's not magic. It's not evil. It is just doing what's right. That's all. And what we as progressives have to do is frame it in a manner that folks understand. The kid makes what I am doing well worth it, as difficult as this thing is. That was the most rewarding engagement I had in a long time. End of blog. So, what did that Facebook post, the post that I read there, generate? I want to read a particular post from a friend of mine. I was actually on his show, and he has a show here. And what I want to do is I want to see if I can find Tommy Cruz, my friend. This is what he said: socialism limits success. I mean democratic socialism, not that, socialism, there are other definitions that they give it, but I won't go there. But he says socialism limits success, he says. It doesn't allow someone to flourish and be more than what socialism limits one to be. I just bought a 2-truck for work. I am going to put a dependable driver in that truck. I'll pay him great, and I'll make a little more money. Oh, and after overhead, I plan on growing. Socialism wouldn't allow that, in my opinion. Just saying. Well, you're wrong, of course, because there's nothing that we want to do that will inhibit you from making the money you want to make it. So how did I reply to him? I said, like I told you on your wonderful radio show, my brother, we are talking past each other. The system we must evolve to will do nothing to stop what you are currently doing. It will make the system sustainable and moral. What we have now is immoral and unsustainable. Next time, I will have you on my show when I can explain in a more concise manner. Peace, brother, is what I told him. But here's the deal, right? Our economy is not sustainable, and I tell this to those who've heard the show before. I'm going to repeat it real quickly, so don't change on me here. But here's the deal, folks. Here's the deal. If the rich 1% is, let's say, growing their wealth at 7, 8, 9% per year, 10% per year, right? The economy is fixed. Think about it, one pie that only grows at 2% every year. That whole economy, one pie, it grows at 2% every year. However, if a slice of that pie, a very thin slice of that pie, when I say thin slice, I just mean percentage of people now, not percentage of wealth, percentage of people. If that thin slice of pie grows, well, actually, let me back up. I got to talk about their wealth. If the part of that pie owned by the wealthy continues to grow at 7 to 10%, and that whole pie is growing at 2%, that means every single year they take a bigger chunk out of that pie. The reason I say it's unsustainable, it's a mathematical certainty that if every year you take a bigger part of that pie, eventually you take what's virtually all of the pie, which means we are then indentured servants. Because at that point, all the pie, and you know what, folks? It is not conjecture, right? We knew what Reagan did was going to do it. We also said this was going to happen. It's not like we didn't say supply side economics, trickle down economics wouldn't trickle down. It's not that we didn't say that policy, the actual policy for the wealthy allows them or makes them hoard capital, hoard money. We said these things, but because it wasn't yet completely effected, they would come back and go, oh, well, that's not true, and they could lie their butts off. But now it is our reality. And if we see that every year the wealthy gets more, after the 2008 crash, these guys are up 300%. Americans are up nothing, virtually nothing. We have to tell the truth, but we have to tell the truth in a way that the average American understand. They don't necessarily, they understand that pie thing. This pie thing that I talk about is great, because what they do is they say, wow, in a little bit, they're going to have all the pie. And then you see when we talk about income inequality, you see it's really happening. People can associate those two. We don't have to talk about, well, the marginal, sometimes I do it a little bit. The marginal propensity to consume of the little man is much larger than the marginal propensity to consume of the rich man. And as such, if you go ahead and release more money into the little man's hands, that marginal propensity means that there will be more economic activity, which all you have to say is, look, they're getting a bigger piece of the pie. And if they get all the pie, there's going to be none left for you. It's that simple. It is that simple. So it is time. It is time now for us to hit the billionaire and the multimillionaire and not allow them to do that. Now, I had another message for El Señor Tommy Cruz, because he kept on in that thread talking about he did it. Why don't other people just go to work, etc. As if or that it's his and he doesn't want anybody to take it away from him. So what I did is I went ahead and I gave him there's one last statement that I gave him. I think I can get to it, or I'll try to get to it. Here it is, my last statement, and this is what I said. My last statement in this subthread is to my friend Tommy. We are very good in an unfettered, or rather, we are very good in an unfettered capitalist system in taking welfare on the sly, in secret. Oil companies get welfare by selling a product that during its development cycle, instead of sequestering its harmful pollutants, releases it in the air, water, and soil. The diseases it creates is neither priced in petroleum products nor in the taxes users of the pollutants pay. Now, Tommy, a good man who makes his income from his trucking business, Tommy has a trucking business, uses the socialist freeway. We all built more than any average American. We all built more than every average American. He carries heavy loads that do more damage to the road than the average Americans. He releases an inordinate amount of pollutants in the air. To be clear, fuel taxes and trucking fees do not come close to paying for his portion of damage to road and people's bodies. The free commerce that allows the products he carries is guaranteed to flow because of a strong military that has all but stopped piracy. I could go on and on. The fallacy is that private business is efficient. It is only efficient because we, the people, the taxpayer, have paid for the resources that they use more so than anyone else. I went on Tommy's show and pointed out my thankfulness for the socialist part of the United States that afforded me the education and more to be successful in business. Tommy Cruz, try to listen to this once more with an open mind. It is very, very important that you do so. Because, folks, what it is, we have given the wealthy, we have given business people a pass. We've made them believe that somehow their worth is more, or somehow they contribute so much more than anybody else. That could not be further from the truth. And the sooner we let everybody know that that is a reality we all know, the better it is going to be for us all. We must tell the truth. We must let people know that, hey, this is the reality of how things are. The fallacy that you're talking about, sorry, it's not going to fly anymore. We cannot let it fly anymore. We are in dire straits as a society. We are in dire straits as far as where we go from here, and we have to start being the ones that are going to make a difference. We have to go out there and we have to make a difference, people. No, there's no stopping. There's no hanging back. There's no stopping or anything going forward. Let me see if I have any messages here that I need to handle. I don't think so. Let's go ahead and see who's talking, if anybody's saying anything. Salas, whose roads will your truck run on, Tommy? Socialism built the roads your truck traveled on. She could not be more right. Socialism built the roads that he's traveling on right this minute. So, folks, we're getting close to the end of the show, and I need to do one more. I think I need to do one more pitch for trying to get our folks out here to join the fold. Folks, please remember, this is a political, progressive show that needs your support. We need thousands of supporters, small contribution supporters, so that we can get this job done. Please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Chapter 2 of How to Make America Utopia is out. So all subscribers get a chance to see that right away. Hi, Rene Perpetua. How are you doing? Yes, all our folks, all the subscribers get to see Chapter 2, Chapter 1. And you know what is the new thing? Guess what? We now have this. I've included As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, which is now online. I got it just before I sent out the newsletter last night. I got it up online so you can actually read As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom online. Just become a subscriber. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Go to our website, egbertowillies.com. Click on books, and the books that you see out there are my books. You can go ahead and you have access to that online. And that book, my first book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It's amazing. It's been written for a while now, and it's amazing how it still matters. All the things that we talk about in there, from the patent law, all these things that are done in a manner that folks can understand, right? I wrote this book assuming that you don't necessarily know economics, you don't know any of that. So what we did is we broke it down. We give examples of the farmer who plant his own crop and collect his own seeds forever, and his neighbor went ahead and planted a genetically modified crop, and that cross-pollinated with his crop. He saved his seeds like normal. He planted another year, and the police, the crop police came along. They looked at his stuff, and they said, "Oh my God, you are using stolen copyright, stolen property, stolen patent." No, I'm not. I grow my plants every year and plant the seed. Well, this says that it has a genetic material from Monsanto. Wait a minute. I didn't buy anything from Monsanto. I grew my seed. I cannot control that Monsanto's pollen flew over and pollinated my field. I can't do that. But, the farmer, I think, lost. So, what I'm trying to say is the corporate takeover of this country that hurts little people, the same people that they claim they support. We discuss all of that in As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Boom. We talk about patents. We talk about the healthcare system. We talk about all of that. And all of that is still relevant because in as much as we got Obamacare, there is so much. Nothing has changed, my people. Nothing. We have a lot of work to do. So please go ahead and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Become a subscriber of Politics Done Right, and you get all these books. And by the way, I have, it's funny. I start books and don't finish them. I have 3 more books in the pipeline right now that are in different levels of being finished. As soon as these books are finished, they're going to go online as well, and your subscription will cover those books as well. No change, no anything, all those things online. So go ahead and sign up, please. HTTP, well, you know the HTTP part. Just go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Well, folks, you know what time it is. It's time for us to close this baby down. I want to thank Daniel Lee, my good friend who is now Culver, California City Councilman. Wow, from activist to politician, to a good politician. Anyhow, this is Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies, and you know how I end this baby. I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.